if you're preparing for Kubernetes certification, whether it's CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator, or CKAD, Certified Kubernetes Application Developer, or working on Kubernetes product as such, or whether it's a on-premise or managed Kubernetes, then this video is going to be the most important for you. And so make sure that you watch it till the end. Now, just to give you some context, I'm starting a 21 days series on preparing for these two certifications, which are CKA and CKAD. Now, in this particular video, the first video of a 22-day series in which today is a day zero, we're going to talk everything that you can expect in this 21 days. We'll make sure that by end of this series, you will have full clarity on Kubernetes certifications and how to prepare for these. And on each day, I'm going to prepare or talk about one topic. So let's see what we can expect and how it will be beneficial so that you don't want to miss this series. So first is what about if you're completely new? And I'm going to point some documentation to begin with. If you're new, if you're already familiar with CK and CKD and this is what you want to do, then you'll be in the right spot. If you're not, I'll also talk about why it's important for you to do these, either CK or CKD, or who this is for everything I'm going to talk about in this video and how you make best out of this. So CK, which is a Certified Kubernetes Administrator, mainly for administrators. You can check out more information on these links, which I'll be sharing or putting below this video. And CKAD, which is mainly targeted for developers. And if you're an architect, in my view, you should be doing both CKA and CKAD. There's a third certification, CKS, Certified Kubernetes Security, which I'm not talking right now. Maybe if I see enough demand, we'll be talking about that as well. So these are two certifications where role of CKA is Certified Kubernetes Administrator to deploy and manage Kubernetes cluster, whereas CKAD is mainly for building and deploying the application on Kubernetes. So let's see what I'm going to look at on each of these 21 days. Today, I'm going to talk about what the certifications are, what the purpose of these certifications, who should be doing this certification, what exam look like for both CK and CKD, which is day zero. Our actual, and also just to let you know, these what I'm sharing here been tried, tested by hundreds and hundreds of guys like you who have got this certification. So we'll be sharing some behind the scenes so that you get a result for sure. So day one is going to be all about Kubernetes overview, architecture and installation, and we're going to go deeper into these things like how does the architecture look like, covering things like control plane, also called as master node, and worker node or a data plane, or also known as worker nodes. We'll talk about architecture. We'll also talk about how to install components up a 3-node Kubernetes cluster or multiple node Kubernetes cluster, or if you don't have an appetite of that multiple node Kubernetes cluster, then we're also going to look at deploying something like Minikube, which is a development version of that Kubernetes cluster, or you can deploy it on managed Kubernetes, Kubernetes on cloud, which is about on AWS, Azure, or Google of your choice. I'll share some of the documentation link. We'll go deeper onto this Kubernetes architecture, installation, and the various components on day one. Day two is all going to be, this is Minikube. We'll be talking about that and what does managed Kubernetes cluster looks like. We'll also talk about some knowledge-based questions, which will be not related to the certification, but to see whatever we've learned on the day one, you've understood those concepts by answering these questions. And then we'll talk about some simple questions based on this day one you can expect on the certifications, whether CK or CKAD. Then day two is all going to be about pod, which is nothing but a one or more containers deployed, which is the smallest deployable unit on Kubernetes cluster on which you deploy your application. So pod, and also YAML, which is yet another markup language, is the way to create these Kubernetes resources that you do. So we'll be talking about the YAML concepts as well as the pod, and same thing to check your knowledge as well as the certification related questions related to pod and YAML on you can expect in the certification. Then day three is all going to be about labels and namespaces, where labels is a key value pair for your grouping your objects, allocating resources you will talk about. And then namespace is where you have the partitioning of the Kubernetes cluster. You can partition in a test dev environment or prod environment within one Kubernetes cluster, or you can do based on application. So that grouping of that or logical partitioning of Kubernetes cluster, we talk about namespace, we'll be talking. And same thing, we'll do some questions, answers, and then the sample exam questions related to this thing. Day 4 is going to be all about the application deployment, and this is where the actual application, whatever application you might have developed or your developers might have developed, to deploy it on Kubernetes cluster. And we'll also look at controllers like replication controllers, replica sets, daemon sets, stateful sets, and so on. Now, if you're wondering how to get hold of, I'm planning to release it every Tuesday and Thursday for over the next 20 days. So I think 21 days. So maybe over the next, probably I think 2 days, over the next 10 weeks or so. If you're watching this later, make sure you register for this series on this by katonacademy.com/CKAD. Even it's going to be for both CK and CKAD. So combined word CKAD, 21 days, which is C you see here. So day 4 is about all this, including going more on, I'll go deeper into these topics and will related to some documentation link that you'll refer and what each one of these meaning. Then day 5 is all going to be about networking in Kubernetes, which is an important thing where we look at both basic networking as well as advanced networking, where we look at services, and there are different types of services in Kubernetes cluster. And we'll also look at ingress controller, which is a layer 7, and what's the difference between normal services and ingress controller we'll see on day 5. Then we'll look at some beautiful diagrams, and also you understand it simply on Kubernetes cluster, especially ingress control. A lot of guys get confused on that. Then day 6 is going to be all about update to the application that you've deployed earlier. How do you update them, rolling forward, rolling backward, and how do you scale Kubernetes deployment? We'll talk about that on day 6. Day 7 is all going to be about the auto scaling, and in that, within auto scaling, within a cluster level, within cluster, you have a horizontal pod auto scaling, which means within your pods can be scaled across multiple nodes within a Kubernetes cluster. So that's, we are going to do it on horizontal pod scaling, auto scaling. Then also in a managed Kubernetes, you can even scale the number of nodes, we can say worker node or data plane. Those nodes, how to increase them on a managed Kubernetes, that's possible. We'll talk about that. Also, how do you limit the resources and how do you set the quotas so you don't run out of memory or disk or resources, underlying resources for mission critical applications deployed on Kubernetes cluster. That's what we're going to look at on day 7. We'll also look at some of the questions. We'll also look at how do you do both from a knowledge check point of view, including what you can expect in the exams based on, for example, how to create a, so there are actual practical implementation that we're going to cover on actual in the exam. Then day 8 is going to be about storage, but ephemeral storage, which basically doesn't stay persistent. So there are 3 types of different storage we'll see. On day 8, we are going to look at ephemeral storage, which basically, as I just now said, it's not a persistent storage, what that mean and how do you configure them as well. Day 9 is going to be persistent store, and this is where we'll say the stays even after you restart your clusters or your pods get restarted or crash or new pods are spanned, you can use that storage. And that is where we'll use persistent volume and persistent volume claims, storage classes, and then dynamic provisioning, which means as the application demands the more storage, it can span or it can create more storage. That's called a dynamic provisioning. And we're going to do it on shared file system, NFS, so that multiple applications scattered across multiple machines or nodes can access the same storage. That's what we're going to do on. We'll also then, day 10 is going to be all about advanced scheduling. And this is where the application or the node can be, the pod can be deployed in specific nodes or with each other or without each other. You can do a lot of those scheduling. Where does that particular application gets deployed based on the pod selection? This is where we're going to look at node selector, node affinity, pod affinity, anti-affinity, and then tainting and tolerations. Just will to configure these things. So pretty advanced topics that you'll be seeing on day 10. Then day 11, we are going to look at the securing the Kubernetes cluster, which is role-based access control, authentication, authorization, and we'll also look at the service accounts. So this is a cluster level security that we're going to look at. And if you say enough interest, enough demand on this, we might extend it to the Kubernetes cluster or this using Azure Active Directory or on a cloud-based authentication authorization system of storing or securing your Kubernetes cluster using Azure AD and other external identity sources as well. If you're interested, leave me in the comment section if you want to know more of these topics. Day 11. Then day 12 is, this is where we're going to look at earlier. Day 11, we looked at the cluster-wide security. In day 12, we're going to look at pod level security or application level security. In that, we're going to look at the network policies, which will dictate the traffic or a network firewall between the different pods on which your application gets deployed. We'll also look at security context, config maps, secrets, all those things that you will need to securely store the sensitive data within your application. That's day 12. Then day 3, and so, and then day 13, this is where we're going to look at one of the most, in my view, where a lot of people fail in the exam. So pay special attention to this. This is where we're going to look at high availability at a the control plane level itself, also the application level, also node maintenance. How do you, if there is any upgrades required or operating system level changes required, some other changes required, how do you maintain that application? We also look at cluster upgrade from within control plane upgrade, also the master node or the entire cluster itself upgrades. We'll also look at how to do troubleshooting and then backup and restore. These are the I think the most critical point, especially if you're working as an administrator. And as I said, backup and restore is where, or upgrades, cluster upgrade is where a lot of guys fail in the certification, especially in CKA certification if you're appearing for that. So pay special attention to on this day. Now this is more or less, I think, in my view, enough for both for CKA. And these topics, there'll be a lot of replication or a lot of common topics between CK and CKD. So this should be, in my view, more than enough these days for CKA. But if you really want to go deeper, or if you really want to become more on an architect side, then continue reading or continue with this series, especially on application developer or application architect point of view. So this is where we are going to cover and begin with day 14, which is going to be health checks. This is where health checks using something called as probing and readiness and liveliness probing to make sure that the application comes up or ensure that application is available. That's on day 14. Day 15, this is where you're running multi-container patterns, which means within a pod, you can have multiple containers on which your application is running. So this is where we have patterns, sidecar pattern, ambassador pattern, adapter, and initialize or init containers you'll be learning on day 15. So quite extensive. Day 16 is going to be about jobs and cron jobs. And do let me know which topic you're interested on each of these so we can go deeper, what exactly topics you want to learn on each of these. But all these are important from a certification point of view. From a implementation, technical implementation, they might differ slightly. Now, day 17 is for application APIs deprecation. These APIs that are available, which is application programming interface, they deprecate or they change, or new ones come. So how do you handle this API deprecations? Day 18 is going to be about custom resource definition, what these means are, and how this functionality works, why you need them, and how do you create them. We'll talk about on CRDs and the exam, also the knowledge check, and then also sample exam questions related to the CRDs that you see. Now, day 19 is about Helm. Helm is a package manager, which is for deploying applications. You can technically deploy without package manager as well, but think of it's a much more cleaner way of deploying applications that you develop or your application developer develops using Helm. So what is Helm? How do you deploy them, those applications as a package manager, including certifications? And that's pretty much on day 19. We'll be covering pretty much everything. Day 20 is going to be all about then exam preparation, where we look at how to register for these exams. And we go through the sample exam questions in an entire thing. Though each of these topics which I've mentioned, we'll look at some of the questions, certification exam questions on that particular topic, but we'll also look at the going deeper into these individual just from an exam point of view, what you can expect, how to prepare, what mistakes you shouldn't be doing, and all those things. So that's going to be about day 20. And then day 21st is all about recap, how go deeper, what mistakes you shouldn't be making, what common mistakes people make, how to avoid them. And we'll do a quick recap on and anything which is being left or I see common questions I'm going to cover on day 21. And that's where we're going to do a recap as well. So if you're highly recommended to register by going to the series k2academy.com/CKAD21. And before I go and talk about these exams, and so let me quickly talk about who am I and why I'm qualified enough to say all these things which I've said. So this is my 25th year in IT. I'm recording it in 2025. I've been doing this almost now more than 1.5 decades now. And these are some of the clients that I work across the globe. These are mainly Majority of them are in UK. I'm based in London. So I have with Royal Bank of Scotland, WorldPay, Scottish Government, ICC in Switzerland. We have Atreides in Netherlands, Toyota in Brussels, Pepperdine in US, Tucson Electric Power in US. Uh, as far as Bank Saudi Railways, Saudi, as well as Bank of Somalia and Ghana. So all some of these are remote, some of these in person here in. And I've done all this myself, going and learning, earning from less than $100 a month to go from nowadays in excess of £1,000 a day. So whatever I'm going to teach about is coming from real experience, and you can learn that as well. Now, I've made these mistakes over the journey and might do a couple of things, but one thing have helped me is I kept learning new things that are becoming hot and hot in the market. So this is where I changed, where I started learning DevOps, containers, Kubernetes on 2013, 14-ish, when the Kubernetes started shipping, and or containers and Kubernetes started. And in 2018, 19 is where I went full stream, especially with deploying Kubernetes and on cloud as well. That's what you're going to cover. And this is what being taught by me and my team, but not just one or two or three, but hundreds and thousands of individuals like you to get certified, get a high paying job. So it's coming from real experience, you'll learn a ton of value. Now, very quickly, why you learn, if you're still not convinced on CK and CKD, if you're completely blank, not coming new, why you should be learning, and then I'll go back to CK and CKD certification, all about those certifications. So this is traditionally where applications back in 2000, prior to 2003 till 2003, 4 applications, and that's the era in which I grew up, where applications were deployed on traditionally one single hardware, where one single hardware, one operating system on top of that, and then you deploy application, which could be Windows, it could be Solaris, it could be HP Unix, it could be Linux, and so on. 2005 came when the the VMware revolutionized the way we run our applications. So you were deploying one hardware on top of that, multiple operating system, maybe multiple Linux or multiple Windows, or Linux and Windows, or you can have within same hardware multiple VMs. And then 2013, 12, 13 came, Docker revolutionized the way we run now applications. You have microservices that run on top of a containerized platform like Docker or other containers nowadays available. And then same time, Kubernetes, a project from Google donated that project Kubernetes to open source, and 2013, which was birth of this Kubernetes, which is orchestration or management of multiple containers that you see in Kubernetes. So if you, and we're going to go deeper into these things, especially we're going to focus on Kubernetes that you see on right hand side. Now, the whole thing comes under DevOps umbrella, and it's growing rapidly as well. And cloud native applications are where things are going more and more. So everyone is moving and building containerized based applications running on cloud native, and that's where Kubernetes is becoming hugely popular. Everywhere you go, so you go and see whether it's whatever, you'll see jobs in Kubernetes, and it become much more important now because AI based workloads, machine learning based workloads are also now running on containerized application or container or Kubernetes clusters as well. The thousands of job, if you see Kubernetes, whether it's on-premise Kubernetes or managed Kubernetes, just type on Kubernetes word, you will see tons and tons of jobs within whatever country you are. This is just to name a few of these Kubernetes clusters. You will see them. We'll talk about that maybe on later. If I see enough demand, will be in between the topics. I'll spin off or add these as well. And they're pretty good salary paying Kubernetes. Someone with the Kubernetes knowledge, they paid quite hefty as well. Now, this is the whole learning path which you're going to cover. Or we cover. I'm going to go and deeper into later. But some of these topics that I mentioned, 21 days, is being picked up from this whole path that you see here. Now, as I said, these are some of the guys who have done it. So this is going to be coming not only just theoretical part or certification based only, but also I'm going to go deeper into uh, what do you need to do to go above and beyond the certification. So those topics will be coming as well. So with that, these are some of the guys who have done the certification. Once we have done, and if I see enough intake, if I see enough interest on this, then probably I might cover managed Kubernetes, which is Kubernetes implementation on cloud, whether it's AWS, which is Elastic Kubernetes Service, which is AWS Kubernetes, or on Microsoft Azure Cloud, Azure Kubernetes Service, Google Cloud, Google Kubernetes Engine, or Oracle Cloud, Oracle Kubernetes Engine, and their deployments, each of these deployments on these, how do you create these, how do you deploy these, some of these things we're going to look at when we look at on day one. Now, later part, there is a CI/CD for Kubernetes, which is Argo CD. I think it's worth knowing and noting. Helm chart, and we're going to cover on, I think, day, whatever, last 19th or 20th, we said about Helm chart. Also, other things which I see popular, Prometheus and Grafana. These are like your logging monitoring as well as Grafana data visualization tools that you see. Also, there are ALK stacks and a lot of other things, service mesh, STOs, you should be working and doing, implementing. So these are the things which are going to cover and we'll look at. Let me go back and quickly about then this certification on day day zero. We're still on day zero. And as I said, so CK and CKD, as I said, CK is for Certified Kubernetes Administrator and CKAD is for Application Developer. Uh, so primarily function, as I said, if you're working as an administrator or operations team, then this is where you're going to work and focus on CK. If you're working on Kubernetes developer, you're going to go for CKAD. And if you're working as an architect, then you should be doing both of them. Now, who this is for? Mainly CK certification. If you're working as a DevOps engineer, working as a cloud engineer, because Kubernetes is deployed on cloud, whether it's on AWS, Azure, Google, I'm just now showing to you, you implement that. If you're a system administrator who is transitioning role from managing virtual machines or operating system onto these virtualized, or you're working on virtualized VMware-based solutions, so you deploy it on Kubernetes cluster. Now, also system administrator or site reliability engineer, if you're managing site reliability as working as site reliability engineers, definitely. Or developer, but you also have an interest in operations. Some guys want to move, so that, or anyone who is working on cloud or cloud native roles, then this is useful. Now, exam, this is going to be, the exam typically happens as a performance based, which means you're given an environment. It's no there's no multiple choice questions, nothing. You have to actually implement it. So you'll be given a console, which is a command line console. We'll talk about that on day 21, but you'll be asked to, for example, create a pod or deploy application or do something or backup and or restore a cluster as well. So it's a hands-on exam. It's 2 hours. You have to pass 66. In my view, one of the toughest exam, but we'll make it simple. You're given 17 to 20 questions. Most of the time, it's not about actual implementation. It's the time people run out of time and spend a lot of time into thinking about. We'll talk about that as well. It's all online, or you can do remotely, go in person as well. And it's English, Chinese, and Japanese language that you see. Same for Kubernetes, Certified Kubernetes Application Developer. It's more for a development skill. This is ideal for someone who's an application developer, DevOps engineer, cloud native development, SRE, or anyone who's transitioning into cloud native development, or if you work in a backend, full stack developer, and so on. Now, these are also becoming important if you're working on MLOps, machine learning, AI deployments, because that's where a lot of these deployments are. Same thing here as well. You do the hands-on based, 2 hours, 66% exam to clear, and there are typically 17 to 20 tasks you're given, some small, some bigger, on page presentation to the certification exam. We're going to talk about that later. So with that, this is what all we're going to cover on this 21 days series. Day one is going to be all about, which is going to be on, depending on when you're watching this. If you're watching this as a recording, a replay later, uh, go and register for that. You will get every Tuesday and Thursdays this email series on that. And yeah, with that, this is Atul from Team K Academy. Thanks for, and do let me know anything additional that you want me to see. Leave me a comment section. What topics you want to focus more, which is of interest, which day is the most important thing for you, or anything and everything. I'm constantly getting feedback and I'll be improving and revising these videos. Even if I've done it maybe 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, year down the line, you're watching them, do let me know. I'll redo that particular part or that particular day again. Yeah. So with that, I'll see you on day one of this video series on and take yeah. So this is day zero. We'll be starting day one now. You'll be getting you'll be getting this on Tuesday. The day one is going to be on Thursday. Take care and bye for now.